Chris is the Executive Director of Property and Campus Services. He has responsibility for overseeing the property portfolio at the Uni of Melbourne, which is worth about $3 billion, so pretty high responsibility there. This morning, Chris is going to step us through what was really a very significant cultural transformation. If I'm not stealing too much of the thunder, we saw 7% increase in engagement. There was a 22% increase in the satisfaction with processes, 23% increase in staff wellness alongside this as well, and some substantial reductions in safety incidents, improvements in on-time delivery and customer satisfaction. What I personally admired when I was reading through the application for Property and Campus Services, it clearly was technically highly proficient group of people that were doing their job in terms of the task focus extremely well. But the transformation really was sort of adding on top of that task focus a very strong people focus. So in terms of the internal customer relationship management and the engagement of staff within the team as well was a very substantial change. So with that, I'll hand on to Chris. So thank you.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Peter. I'm pleased to be able to really say that our clients are the centre of what we do. The university, we have 47,000 students and about 7,000 staff. So a bit over 50,000 people make up the community of the university, and those people in a population sense are about the size of the 5th largest city in Victoria. And in many ways, that's what we do, is we look after a city within a city. As has been, yep, there we go. Geographically, we're split across 6 campuses, but by any measure, 80 to 90% of our business is in the Parkville campus, which you can see in the photograph in the centre. As Peter said, we operate about a $3 billion property portfolio with about 500 buildings across that portfolio. So the sorts of things that we do on a day-to-day basis is we look after all of the facilities operations of the university, so the maintenance, the cleaning, anything else that people don't want to do, like security and parking. But we also look after the strategic development of the campuses and also the development of new buildings on the campus. So in that role, we look at basically trying to promote change and innovation across the university, across all of our clients, as we effectively are investing in quite large, major new buildings. And especially in the teaching and learning space, and especially in the research space, it's important that we do promote that innovation because we are building buildings for the next 50 years, basically. So all in all, the short of that is we operate an integrated property business which has got an annual spend in OPEX of about just over $80 million and a CAPEX of just over $200 million. So approximately we spend 1/6 of the university's budget. So the emphasis on us doing that well and doing it in a way that engages our clients, as you would indicate, or as you would realise, is fairly significant. We'll take a minute to just reflect on where we were in 2009 and 2010. Property and Campus Services at that stage, we had still a strong committed staff, but they were, as Peter was describing, we were much more focused on managing the property and far less focused on managing people and our interaction with our clients. So the characteristics of the organisation, we'd been through 2 reviews, and that had been quite critical of the performance of the group. There was poor client focus and limited understanding of the broader university across our staff. We had siloed sections within Property and Campus Services. We have a staff of about 200 people across 6 sections, and people were much more likely to get involved in blaming one another than in focusing on fixing the problem for our clients. and a fairly dependent structure which was looking more at passing on responsibility and looking for somebody else to actually make decisions for them. And so if we reflect on our change journey, in 2010, an initiative that came about by a number of the directors and also senior staff was for us to undertake a culture survey across property and campus services. And I think the takeout of that first survey was really, and we had about a 60% response rate, and the takeout of that first survey was that the kind of culture that everybody aspired to, that our executive team and our staff aspired to, was exactly the same. But where we were was an awful long way short of that aspiration. And I think that was the single thing where the penny dropped and people kind of went, well, there is kind of one goal here, and it's clear that we're joined in that journey. So in 2010, we spent a lot of time at the executive level on leadership development with myself and also our directors. So not much was seen in 2010 coming out of the kind of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. It was more involved. In 2011, we embarked on involving our senior management team, which is about another 20 staff from the 7 executive team. And we involved them on developing our annual plan, what our goals were, what our achievements were. We involved them in validating the earlier work that the leadership team had done on mission and what our overall goal was for the group. And then we started to devolve responsibility for action into staff teams working across each of the sections. So in the purple under there, you can kind of see the initial group that came forward, who have now become the culture change team. They were delegated the responsibility for managing the process all of the way through, and that team has evolved over time, and some of the people here today are from the previous team and some from the existing team. And then we started a series of staff information sessions, which was aimed at staff telling other staff within the group what they actually did. And we involved staff from across all of the levels in those forms of presentation. And we then established a senior management group that met on sort of a more frequent and quarterly basis, workshopping things that needed to change across the group. In the client space, we continued to take a series of snapshots of client surveys all the way along the journey, which started to indicate where we were having traction. And we developed what was called a practice leadership network, which was working with all of the staff that had the largest engagement with us across the university, and meeting with them on a series of quarterly, a little bit more frequently, workshop days with a drink afterwards, looking at what was important to them and how we changed our practice. So in a little bit more granular detail, the actual initiatives were focusing on leadership, getting our purpose and values and HR principles right, involving our senior managers in that process, and then involving interdisciplinary teams across the group, working on things. And in particular, where initiatives came from staff, we made sure that we picked those up and tried to support and run with them. Early in the piece, the sorts of initiatives, the staff club was established, we supported that, and staff newsletter was established, we supported that. So it was very important that where people showed initiative, that we made sure that we supported that buy-in. From a client satisfaction point of view, we worked much more closely with clients on our change initiatives. Most recently, we've involved them in a change to how we deliver service, so that we've got a much more client-owned service model. And we focused on engaging our staff in trying to make property and campus services a great place to work. And that was focused around looking at a mentoring program, which was again a staff initiative coming out of the staff. We did a lot of work on reward and recognition, and also on running a series of workshops with all of our staff across the teams on achievement thinking and basically constructive behaviour. And we undertook to continue the culture surveys to check how we were going along the way. From a communication point of view, we developed a mantra of one PCS to try and break down the silos, which has worked. And we've got, I've mentioned the cross-disciplinary teams, and just the staff information program. One of the things that the staff have reflected most that they've enjoyed and get the most value out of is working across the group, and when they come together as teams working on initiatives. And the other thing that we tried to do was to, because we're such a large group, is get together quarterly for an all-staff lunch, and the attendance of those have grown over the period. So we get about out of our 200, we get about 120 now to a quarterly all-staff lunch. And that opportunity for just informal social interaction, I don't think you can underestimate that is just as important as breaking down the barriers as just focusing on what the day-to-day work is. And underlying that, we did a number of system improvements around website enhancement, rolling out more information to our clients. And so the results from that is we had a much increased participation rate to the survey in 2000 and to the most recent survey in 2013. The largest improvements were in wellness, processes, change and innovation. Strengths compared to the whole of the university was in change and innovation. Facilities, not surprisingly, I guess, but work-life balance and involvement. And we had the highest engagement with 85% compared to the university average of 77, and the highest progress of 78 compared to the university average of 68. The surveys that were undertaken, if you remember the previous slide, the staff surveys occurred in 2011 and then 2013. The 2011 culture, I think fairly accurately, we were then on the cusp of starting to change. So the 2011 fairly accurately, I think, described our culture in 2009, 2010. But having that survey then and then the survey in 2013 to validate sort of what we believed where we'd come from was very important. It's also been important to raise the credibility of property and campus services of having achieved those as initiatives, which is part of the validation. And it's highlighted the blind spots, the places where we've got to look to continue. We've done a lot of initiatives, but there's still work to be done, of course, and there always will be. That just gives you a snapshot of where we changed. We slid back only slightly in teamwork, but the largest improvements, as I've said, is in wellness, processes and change and innovation. And I've just put that up, which were all the positive comments. As with all these surveys, you also get the negatives of the ones that you have to work with. But the reason I've put that up there is that in our role, if we really do our job well, we will sort of not be on anybody's radar, because we're a support service that enables the university to open its gates every day, and people just expect that to happen for them. The difference has been over that period for me is that instead of receiving less than complimentary emails and raising problems and having to go into firefighting mode, I rarely receive those on a day-to-day basis, and when I do, it's generally quite a polite email pointing out where we could do things better. But I also received a lot of emails last year, which was just congratulating individual staff members and the group on the way we were going about things. So overall, it has been a great journey for us, and one that we're still continuing on. Basically, what we've tried to do is look at those people who have significant interaction with them, with ourselves within faculties, and also the central services. And so we've invited them along to basically a topic type workshop of about 2 hours, and then we finish that with drinks and informal, and generally we try and make those a mix of presentation and interaction, and generally the interaction is about how can we improve this service. So the idea of having client surveys also feeds into that, so we can report back and we can pick up things that are common and try and address those. So we generally get out of probably about a target of about 60 people. We'll generally get somewhere between 20 and 30 at any one time. But it's something that I think the clients have valued, and it's been important in breaking down the barriers and just having a common dialogue really around what people want to do. It provides that ability to mediate and negotiate. One of the things that I didn't mention is whilst the whole change initiative was about trying to improve client service, I think we worked out that at the start that we weren't going to do that. Just rolling out a client service training session to all of our staff was not going to fix it. It was like a kind of a band-aid that wasn't going to work. And changing the culture, and then last year we ran a course again across all of our teams about managing client expectations. So it wasn't necessarily just about client service. It was managing what we can do about client service in an environment that you can't always say yes. And we had 86% of our staff go through that program, and it really, that's kind of 2 to 3 years from when we started. That was the time when the staff would be able to pick that up and take it forward.